Okay, well, great. I think we can get started here. Thanks, everyone. Good day, and thanks for joining our webinar on productivity tools for surveyors in Civil 3D. My name is Remy Laksamana, and I'm one of SolidCAD's account manager for the Infrastructure GIS team. Joining me today is Brian Lewandowski, CTC Civil Product Manager for the CIM tools. Our agenda for today is an intro of who is SolidCAD for those that are new, followed by an intro to CTC Software, the CTC CIM solutions, what are they? Then I'll be handing off the webinar to Brian for a brief overview and live demo. We'll finalize the hour that's allotted for us with a Q&A, so please go ahead and type in your questions. We'll address them at the end. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to let everyone know our next CTC webinar showcasing newly released tools. On next Wednesday, July 15th, we have the automated pond grading using the new tool AutoGrader. AutoGrader will allow you to grade ponds at a fraction of the time, and you get to save your pond design for future use in other drawings and projects. This is something that's not very easily managed in out-of-the-box Civil 3D, so please make sure you register for that. July 29th, we have another cool tool labeled Genie. This session will show you how to insert Civil 3D and or AutoCAD label types automatically across multiple drawings and sheet all in one time. Label Genie will cut down hours of time spent on labeling and sheet annotation for surveyors. Now, we also have some online courses on Civil 3D for surveyors, July 21st and 22nd. That's a 2-day session. Civil 3D Fundamentals, July 27th and 30th. Now, these are held with a maximum of no more than 6 people, so they do fill up fast. So please reach out to your sales rep for details and to reserve your spot. For more events and courses, please visit our events page at solidcad.ca. So who is SolidCAD? Well, we're your Autodesk reseller that's kept the Platinum Partner status, the highest, for well over 25 years. We specialize in technologies that help support clients in industries in architecture, engineering, construction, civil infrastructure, and manufacturing. With our service in consultation, training, workforce assessment, and technical support, SolidCAD has delivered solutions to our clients to help maximize ROI for their technological investments. Now, we have a dedicated combined team of 11 civil specialists located coast to coast, ready to assist you in various time zones. And we have training facilities and offices right across the nation. Other than Autodesk products, SolidCAD also are partnered with companies such as these. Just to name a few, Bluebeam. Bluebeam Review allows you to transform your scanned images into easily searchable documents. You can add your text, notes, CAD drawings, stamps, and highlight to your documents, all in PDF format. Now, we also provide surveying equipment such as Leica BLK360. It's the smallest scanner in existence today that takes 360K points per second, and it's easily operable through your iOS or Android phone or at tablets. And for more details on these and any products shown, please contact your sales rep or just log into our website at solidcad.ca and go to partner products. Now, who is CTC? Well, since 2010, CTC has developed add-ins for Revit and Civil 3D and is a member of the Autodesk Developer Network. As of 2019, CTC Express tools are currently being used by more than 64,000 users worldwide and in more than 75% of the top firms in the United States alone. As a industry leader, CTC is up to speed on all non-Autodesk software and technologies that relate to and interact with Autodesk software, be it Windows, Office, visualization applications, and hardware specifications. Now, the two CTC CIM solutions are Project Suite and Manager Suite. Project Suite is for your everyday Civil 3D user. It consists of tools for corridors, pipe network, legends, sheet creation, layer management, and surveying. The Manager Suite, with CAD managers in mind, is built for the efficient management of CAD style, layers, content, template creation, and editing. And now for a deep dive for the product suite of Surveyors in Civil 3D, I'll hand it over to my colleague, Brian Levins.
Thanks, Romeo. Let's just get our screens switched over here and we'll jump into these tools in a little bit more detail. All right, Romeo, give me a confirmation. Can you see my slide deck there, Civil 3D Shortcomings?
Yes.
All right, good. So I thought I would kick it off with just talking a little bit about Civil 3D and some of the shortcomings or kind of challenges when you're using it as a survey technician or a surveyor. Because let's face it, the software is kind of first and foremost made for designers, and sometimes it feels like surveying users is a bit of an afterthought. So with this, labeling can be really time consuming. A lot of plats we put together, different sheets we put together, and there's a lot of labeling, and that can be quite time consuming. Legend creation, perhaps an existing conditions topo. This is a very manual process. This, in fact, isn't unique to surveyors, but it's something we need to do, and we end up doing a one-size-fits-all or kind of a manual process. Survey databases, that's for processing topo data in Civil 3D, generating your automatic line work. Many of you, perhaps you're not even using these because they're so kind of tricky to use and clumsy. It's another big challenge in Civil 3D. Taking design data, right, and exporting this for staking purposes can be quite tedious. Think about multiple code lists. A lot of organizations out there have multiple code lists. Perhaps the surveyor is surveying on Monday in one code list and another day in another code list. This gets pretty tricky to manage. And so that's another challenge. And then finally, standards management, like your description key sets and layers and that sort of thing in your Civil 3D templates can be time consuming as well. So I've listed these challenges here because these are some of the main ones that the Civil Express tools from CTC address. And with that, I'm going to jump into Civil 3D, and I'm going to show you a variety of these tools as they relate to survey workflows, survey users, you name it. And what I want to start off with is some labeling workflows with a new tool we just released a couple weeks ago, in fact. And while this tool does a lot of different things, the example I want to show you here is just automated labeling of boundary lines, lot lines, this sort of thing, and how fast it can be. Now, it's not bad out of the box because you can pick a line and it'll automatically insert a line and curve label on it. But oftentimes we have really large sites and there's many labels to apply at once. So among other things, Label Genie will automate line and curve labeling across all kinds of objects. So let's go ahead and launch this. If I launch Label Genie, I can choose my drawing sources. I've got current drawing. I could include additional drawings if I wanted. And then down here, am I going to label model space or layouts? And then over here, the label type. So we said line and curve labels. I'm going to anchor these to polylines. And then I'm going to actually choose the polyline layer that I want to attach all these to, okay? And I'm going to do just the layer called side lot lines, okay? Notice there's all different ways to include and exclude different sets of polylines or whatever it is you might be labeling in here, okay? We're going to label the segments, and of course, we're going to do both line and curve. Then on the formatting tab, depending on the label type you're choosing, there's different styling and formatting options here. Like I said, we chose line and curve, but there's all sorts of other label types you guys will use. Basic MText, I'll show you that in just a moment here. Surface labeling, station and offset labeling, you name it. All of this stuff can be programmatically applied across multiple drawings and layouts at once. So we're going to grab these side lots. We want to apply a bearing over distance and a bearing or a distance over radius curve style, okay? We can control the flip state on all these labels. I'm going to set it to none. And if I hit add, it gives me a confirmation. 126 labels we're going to add at once. Tells me it was successful. I hit OK. And all those labels show up based on, right, that layer filtering I specified. I don't have to go and pick every one of them. So this gets really fast. Think about your labeling of plats or subdivision layouts like this, whatever it might be. It's pretty standardized a lot of the times, right? So maybe it's not that layer, but we want to label the front lots, and those are on a particular layer there. And the difference here is we want distance only labels, right? So it's a different style. These are just the styles in my drawing here. I've got flip state options again. Sometimes you're not quite sure, right? Should they be flipped one way or another? Let's just go ahead and leave it at none. Hit add, 142 labels. We'll say yes to that. And all of those came in at once. And now looking at them, it depends on how the geometry was drawn. In this case, I wanted these flipped to the inside. So I could go and flip all them manually, or Label Genie, it's not just about adding labels, but notice the button down here says add/update labels. So I can launch it again. It'll remember my previous settings, and I can say, this was supposed to be the flip state applied to all of them. Notice there's some other options there, towards the centroid, away from the centroid. And I'm going to run this again. It'll update 142 labels. My confirmation says 142 updated. So there's 0 new ones, just updating 142 labels. I hit OK, and they all flip to the outside. Okay, I'll give you one more example, and then we'll do another label type here. Let's grab the back of lots here. We want some overall bearing and distance labels, and then you can just type it in here too, right? So maybe the right-of-way lines, so multiple layers. I can also use syntax like put an asterisk in there, so it'll grab every layer that starts with underscore right-of-way. And then these need to receive a different set of styles. Hit OK, add, it'll be 47 labels, okay? I think you get the idea how fast this can be, right? Now, line and curve labels, something you're using in surveying drawings a lot. That's why I wanted to showcase that. Let's look at one other example. And this one, I want to do this a different way. Label Genie is very flexible. I was labeling in my drawing with polylines there, but what if I'm in my sheet drawing and I have XREF'd in multiple base files, okay? Label Genie will read through XREFs as well, because that's a pretty common workflow, right? You XREF in your base files, and then you put your labels, in many cases, in those sheet files themselves. We can do it that way as well. And here I have 4 different layouts. In fact, a couple of these, if you notice, the view is twisted a little bit. Notice the north arrow is twisted. And then on these layouts, the north arrow is straight up and down. So it's maybe about a 5-degree twist there, okay? Label Genie is going to account for this. We're going to insert M text automatically, and it's going to be able to read the rotation of the viewport. So as I said, there's many different scenarios you might use Label Genie for. I'm just giving you a taste of a couple of them. So we're going to include the current drawing, of course, and this time we're going to include XREFs. That'll bring in those base files, and it'll read that data as well, and then I can label that. Now, before I label the entire model space, if you label by layout, it's going to label just what's found within the viewport. So I can label all layouts in the found drawings, or if I labeled selected layouts, I could jump into here and choose just certain layouts to label. Now I could, if I wanted, say I had 4 separate drawings, one layout in each drawing, I could add those 3 other drawings in here and label them the same way I'm about to do it right now. So lots of flexibility there. There's limitations by viewport as well. I'm going to label every viewport. Okay. And we're going to do a multi-line text on polylines. And we're going to grab a layer. So here's some of that syntax. So I had run this in this drawing before. This is one of the nice things about Label Genie is it remembers the last settings per drawing. Okay. So I've got find every layer, every polyline on the layer full lots. Okay. I'm going to label the centroid of those polylines, and then I go to the formatting tab. And because this is just mtext, now I can pull all kinds of information from those polylines. Okay, again, my example has just been polylines, mtext, and line and curve labels here. But all the others, there's all kinds of other things, alignments, blocks, feature lines, you name it, Civil 3D and AutoCAD objects that we can attach these different label types to. Depends on the label type, right? Surface spot, it's not going to attach to certain things, right? But a variety of options there. And what we're gonna do is, here I'll build it again manually. We can grab the polyline area, and then I can put in some kind of custom text if I wanted. Now this happens to be an imperial drawing. It's the same for metric drawings. And I'm gonna put in SF for square feet. Put a little space after it there. Okay, and there's a new line component, all kinds of options. And down here, again, because it's mtext, and not everything's saved into the style, much like a Civil 3D label, with mtext, we get control on all this formatting here. So my text style, is it annotative, justification, okay, my display height, I'm gonna put that at 0.15. The display width, we can go to 1.5. What's the capitalization? And then here's this option I wanna make note of, right? Some of these viewports have a twist to them. I can make sure my mtext is rotated to the view as opposed to the object or the world coordinate system. And then there's other options here for offsetting and background mask and all sorts of things. Now I've hit add here. We're going to see it's going to scan, find all those layouts. There's 108 labels that are to be added. I'll hit yes to this. 108 labels successfully added. And all of those come in to my layouts. Okay. Now this stuff is dynamic again, right? So whatever, if there's some kind of change, if the polylines change, it's not like a line and curve label that would be refreshed, right? The mtext would have to be moved, or perhaps there's just positioning in my viewport, right? Like say I shifted this to show more of these lots. Well, these aren't showing up. They weren't showing up in this viewport before, okay? So if I make any kind of change like that, I can simply run Label Genie again. Remember all those previous settings. And then watch up here, those labels are going to appear, and it's going to refresh if there were any changes to any of these down here. Add 7 new labels and update 98 labels. We'll say yes to that. Okay, and then those labels show up, right? Okay, so we can take hours and hours of labeling time, turn it into minutes. I've just shown you guys a couple examples here, but Label Genie is a really big, robust tool that we've built out here. I want to mention one other thing. You might have seen all these settings in here, right? The layouts, the anchor objects, all this kind of stuff, all these formatting options, and you're thinking, well, Brian, I do the same every time, right? I always want to label this way, this size text and so forth. Well, you can take any of these label scenarios, let's call them, and you can save these out to a template file. So I can just call this, say, mtext on polylines area, for example, and I can save that out. And then it becomes available in a drop-down right here. I can pick it, load it, and then it'll load all those settings. So Label Genie will read based on a path set and options right here. Wherever you path this could be on a network location on your server, so that everyone can share a set of labeling scenarios. And then they appear in your dropdown and boom, boom, label your lots, label your property lines, you name it. Tons of time savings there. So that is Label Genie. Like I said, a new tool we just released a couple weeks ago, and that's part of the CIM Project Suite. By the way, as we go along here, feel free to type in questions in the GoToWebinar system. We'll address those at the end. But if they come up as I'm showing you things here, type them in right then and there. And just because we don't respond right away, we will answer them at the end of the presentation. So I had mentioned legend creation, right? Taking an existing conditions topo survey like this, where it varies from project to project what shows up there. A lot of times we might bring in a one-size-fits-all legend, and that might work, but what are some of the problems with that? Sometimes there's information that might be missing, or you're showing a bunch of information that you don't have in your project. And so then you either leave it, and to me, it kind of muddies up your sheets, or you have to manually delete all that stuff. Well, wouldn't it be nice if we could just scan our drawings and then automatically build a legend based on what's found in the drawings? So that, among other things, is what this tool Data Wizard is about. Now this works for QTO, it does all kinds of things, but I just want to show you an example here of making an existing conditions legend per sheet, meaning I want to make a legend based on just what's in this one sheet. We got a couple sheets in this plan actually, but so we're going to come in here, and that was Label Genie. Let's go to Data Wizard. Notice the interfaces are pretty consistent from one to the next. We try to make them familiar to you, so it's easy to jump from different tools in the suite. So here I'm going to choose the current drawing, and I'm going to choose the layout, Site Plan 1, and I want to build a legend based on just this viewport. So I can limit it to the viewport itself. Now, like Label Genie, I could read XREFs, I could bring in additional drawings. Okay, I could build a legend based on 5 other drawings, you name it, all kinds of options. I go to the next tab here. Notice some of these settings are saving again. Much like Label Genie, it remembers your previous settings so you can quickly launch this stuff over and over. So this is an existing conditions topo. What I wanted to scan for is my survey points, survey figures, and hatches. I want to exclude frozen things, right? Perhaps there's some ground shots that I don't want to appear in my legend. That makes sense. Exclude all frozen layers. And then there's also all these filter options where you can really dive in and control based on layer filtering. You can be weeding based on point description, all kinds of things where you control the exact data that comes into your legend or your report or your table. Again, my example is a legend here, but it's any kind of tabulation. And we can scan for just about any Civil 3D object here. Notice Civil 3D objects, as well as AutoCAD objects for that matter, blocks, 3D polylines, regular polylines, you name it, scan for that, and we can pull all kinds of information from that data. So some of you might use a variety of different Civil 3D tables, maybe use the data extraction tool, and what they all kind of do this mediocre job, and none of them will really grab all the objects at once, and certainly none of them will insert the graphics that you might want for a legend, right, to show the little tree symbol or whatnot. So here's the survey points that showed up, okay, and what information are we pulling? The graphic and the layer description. But if I jump into data to extract, just to give you an example, all the information we can pull out of here, right? Description information, style information. So maybe you want to populate your legend based on style names or descriptions. You don't have to use layer description, no problem. There's quantity information like 2D and 3D length, count, northern and easting. Okay, there's parcel information, all kinds of stuff we can pull out of these objects, okay? If I click next, this is basically the formatting screen where I choose options for capitalization. What are the cell sizes? Do I apply any additional scale factors to the symbols or the line types or the hatches? And then what kind of headers do I want or titles do I want in there? And then finally down here, what's my export? I can go to an AutoCAD table or I can go to an Excel sheet. Now, if you're going to Excel, you're not going to get the AutoCAD graphics, the symbology we're looking for in a legend. So that might be more of a report or a QTO scenario. Either way, Data Wizard will scan for anything in any of your drawings and table it up for you. So I'm going to use my AutoCAD table style called Paperspace Legend. I'll hit Finish, and I can drop it right next to my viewport here. Okay. So again, just an AutoCAD table. This behaves like any other AutoCAD table you might use. Okay. What the borders look like, it's all about the AutoCAD table style. You can customize that in your templates as you see fit. But notice the hatch scaling, okay, the line type scaling, symbol scaling, everything comes through. Obviously, the one exception is the tree because they're scaling based on diameter, but it reads from the actual size of the point style, and that's what it reports. Okay. Now this thing is dynamic, meaning if something changes in my drawing, right? Like remember we said to exclude frozen layers. Well, what if I froze a couple things in here? Like let's freeze the hatching and those catch basins, right? Or maybe new survey data came in, right? And it was additional information. It wasn't removing anything. Either way, you can simply run the update table command, pick your table, and it'll refresh based on the settings you used to create that legend, right? So now the catch basin's gone, the building hatching is removed because the settings to create this table told it to exclude frozen layers. Okay, a lot like Label Genie. Again, there's a template option down here. You can save templates out, a Data Wizard template, and then you can reload those again. But it also always remembers previous settings. So if I have a second sheet in here and I run this again, it's gonna save my previous settings. The only change I need really is the layout and the viewport name, but then everything else should be fine. I should be able to generate a legend quickly in the same way. But this time it'll read this layout and this viewport. And so now we're getting a second tree type, we're getting a storm line, a manhole, okay, and no hatching in this layout, right? Okay, so really powerful tool. That's another one that's used by all Civil 3D users, but especially valuable for survey users. So let's go on. I want to show you a couple of small, simple tools. These are actually free tools. So I was showing you Label Genie and Data Wizard up here. These come free with a trial, of course, and then are paid after that. But these light green buttons, these are all free tools, and there's a couple of them that apply to survey workflows. And so I want to highlight those right now. One is about aiding with exporting data for construction staking. And a lot of times in design files for grading out parking lots or subdivisions or ponds, you name it, feature lines are a base geometry that that designers will use. They're 3D lines, and a lot of times they represent exactly what you might need to stake in the field. Right? Here's a feature line representing the back of curb of a parking lot. And if I load elevation editor, there's all these elevations on it. There's all the stationing. This is exactly the data I need for staking. Some of you might be used to generating a bunch of Kogel points, something like that, right? Well, if you're able to stake a 3D line, it's much more flexible in your data collector. The only problem with this is feature lines won't load into your Trimble and your TopCon and your Leica data collectors. They need to be in the format of a alignment and profile. And in Civil 3D, there's no way to do that. which is what the point of this tool is, right? So it was this kind of this brick wall we had found in the whole process where we've got all these feature lines, the data is there, I just need to put those in my data collector, but we need those in alignments and profiles. So feature line to alignment, again, a free tool, allows me to pick, let's pick this one, for example. I can pick feature lines, and then I can turn them into alignment and profiles, the exact same geometry. You'd think the tool would be in the software natively, but it's not, right? So we can do it here with this free tool. Then I've got all kinds of formatting options and so forth. I'm gonna click Draw on Profile View. I'm gonna choose that back of curve alignment. Notice the alignment already created. And I'm gonna create this profile view. We'll drop it down here, okay? So there's the alignment. And then here is the 3D geometry, the vertical profile, matching exactly what was in the feature line, okay? So if your designers aren't using feature lines for grading, they certainly should be. Many workflows work great with feature lines. When they do that, you're able to take that and very easily export it for staking purposes like this. So that's a tool called Feature Line to Alignment. Another one here is called Survey Sweeper, another little tool that fixes a real difficult pinch point in workflows in Civil 3D. And this deals with survey databases and drawings, specifically how they interact or work together. And if you are used to using survey databases, you know how clumsy they can be, right? And one of the great things about survey databases is if there's miscodes in the field, for example, I was supposed to have a begin code on this shot so that it would draw all the line work for this curb line, this edge of concrete. And what's great about the survey database is you can pick that point and you can edit the point in the database and just put your begin code in there. I enter this, it tells me now I want to update the line work, right? But now watch what happens when I do this. It's going to draw that new line for me, but what does it do? It brought back these duplicates. So anyone of you guys who have used a survey database, I know you've struggled with this pain here where you're trying to take advantage of editing survey points to refresh line work, and then you get duplicate survey figures. And the reason is that if you edit survey figures and then do any line work editing, it duplicates those survey figures. And the big problem is that you get duplicates inside the survey database itself over here. In fact, if I go dig through it, you'll see here's that building line work. There's two building codes down here, two building survey figures, and there's two in the drawing here. And the problem is that we pull all of our break lines from the survey database, or that is the workflow we should be using. And when we do that, we're going to end up with all these duplicate break lines in our surface. So Survey Sweeper is this very simple, effective tool that allows me to pick survey figures right in the drawing, and it'll delete them out of my database. A very intuitive way to work, but there's no way to do this natively. I can do the same with survey points. Say survey point should have been deleted out of the survey database. Maybe there's an extra survey figure over here. Okay, again, it's not enough to just delete them off the screen because they still reside in your survey database. And that is kind of the source information, the database itself. So I hit enter to this. It's going to say delete one survey point, one survey figure, yes. Okay, and it pulls this stuff, of course, not only out of the drawing, but out of the survey database as well down here. Okay, you might be thinking, so that's just a delete command, huh, Brian? Right, it is, but it's not there natively. And if you're fully using the survey database, that's a real painful point of the tool itself, the duplication of survey figures unintentionally. So another handy free tool there in the CIM Project Suite. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is a tool that comes from our CIM Manager Suite. Ramil had mentioned this suite of tools. This is for managing standards and things like that. And It'll work specifically with your description key sets in your figure prefix database. So if I jump to an empty drawing here, you take a look, I've got my description key set in here, okay? And what does this do, right? This has all your survey codes in it, and it controls what happens to those points as they're imported into the drawing or they're created in the drawing. Really handy tool, okay? But it's a really painful interface to work in. What if you have to build a new one? What if you have to just make modifications in here? I make a new code and it jumps around. It's really glitchy and everything, okay? And then the other thing is we have a similar interface for our survey figures. Okay, we have another table here, and this is again a very glitchy, kind of slow, clumsy interface to work in. And you don't really have time for all this, right? And so what better table type interface to work in but Excel when it comes to managing this kind of stuff? So in this drawing, I can instead take this description key set, I can export it, and I can write the whole thing to Excel. And you may have done this before by doing just like a clipboard copy, right? You can copy out the description key set and throw it into Excel. But then you're kind of stuck, right? There's no way to write that Excel file back to the template itself. So I'll show you that in a second. But first I want to mention the actual export you get is a very smart export. All your point styles show up in here. Point label styles, your layers, okay? All these options show up as formatted drop-down lists in Excel. So simple edits in here, deleting some keys, okay? Because it's Excel, it's really easy to make quick edits like this, right? This is the beauty of using Excel. And we're all familiar with Excel. What about making new codes, right? I'll just show you one example here. You make a new hydrant code and choose the point style. What if there's no hydrant code in there, right? Hydrant point style. What this tool will actually allow us to do is if we type in a point style name that doesn't exist, it'll create it for us when we sync this back to Civil 3D. And that's what the point of this block column is for as well. So if you're building out a new template, a new code list, or just modifying it, you can just type in new point styles and it'll automatically create those for you when you sync back to Civil 3D. Choose our layer here. Okay, I'm going to save this. I'm going to come back to Civil 3D, and then I've got create, edit, description keys. And then I simply browse to that CTC Excel file, okay? I've got multiple options here. I can update the CTC one that I already have in the drawing, or I can create a new one. In this case, I'm going to update it. I want to sync the description key set, meaning if I delete anything in Excel, I want to also delete it out of the drawing. And I can also create new styles if I want. If I hit next, gives me an update. Here's that new point style that's about to be created. There's a bunch of changed codes where I change the point style. There's deleted codes. Okay, I'll hit OK to this. And then, of course, if we look at our description key set, everything shows up in here. There's that hydrant code. Okay, deleted codes. Okay, really flexible, easy workflow. There's a number of reasons we do this. One, Excel is universal. Non-Civil 3D users can work with it. It's way faster to work in Excel, right? And then the other thing is so many of your standards are managed in these table type interfaces. I mentioned the figure prefix database. This entire table as well will export. Right here, run the export, okay? Then I can do the same kind of thing I just did with the description key set. I can make any changes I want here. I could import it into a new drawing to build out an entirely new description or figure prefix database. And then one other tool set I'll just mention briefly here because it applies to all Civil 3D users. What about the layer dialog itself, right? We can export that entire thing to Excel. And I tell it to open it right away. And I can work with my entire layer manager in Excel, make any changes, additions I want, and then sync it back to Civil 3D, okay? So that second tool is Layer Boss that deals with layers, and then Survey Template Manager deals with the description key set and the figure prefix database in your templates. A couple other things here. Template Tracker will find layers and textiles embedded in your Civil 3D styles. And then Line Type Manager is a free tool, another free one. It's a visual line type editor. So it'll actually give you previews of the line types right within your line type files, okay? A more realistic scale here. Right. So this is reading from my LIN file. It gives me a preview of what's happening here. Okay, I can jump right in here and I can edit line types in a very intuitive type interface right here. So that's a free tool. So you guys can get that one. It's easy to get your hands on. There's one other one I wanted to mention here. It was about dealing with multiple code lists. I don't want to bring up just a basic CSV file to kind of highlight this. Here's a basic point number, northing, easting, elevation, description point file, right? And this is what we're taking a lot of times when we import into Civil 3D to generate points and perhaps automatic line work. And this coding standard, in this case, it's a numeric one. Now, if you're an organization who has to deal with multiple coding standards, perhaps different customers, right? Maybe there's a couple clients that dictate certain code lists, and then you've got maybe your own company standard. Maybe you're a smaller organization and you deliver surveys to a different civil engineering firm. Whatever the case is, what this tool is going to allow you to do is to survey in one standard, always in one standard, and then convert it to any other coding standard you want. And how it works is by taking a simple Excel file that you basically just one time spell out the translation, right? Like code 301 always gets converted to back curve, okay? So you build basically these translation files, and it'll account for suffixes and prefixes and all kinds of things. And then what you do with our tool, you launch Point File Converter. Hold on, I got this message here. There we go. Point File Converter. Let's bring up those Excel files again. And then the way this works is right up here, you browse to the translation file. This is where I said this converts into this coding standard. I simply browse out, grab that standard. Now it doesn't have to be numeric to alpha, it could be anything, right? I can grab any number of point files. I could grab 50 of them at once and translate all these point files, okay? So this is work just on the point files themselves, not on the DWGs. This happens before the DWG. And I've got some save and conversion options here. I'm going to hit apply to this. Tell me one translation file was created. And if you go right here, here's that one I just created. Here's the date from just now. And let's just open this up and put it right next to the numeric one, okay? So this is basically a save as of this file on the left here. And it translated, like look at some of these, so it's 301A to BC1, okay? It's all based on a very simple translation file, okay? So I think you get the idea here, right? If you're dealing with multiple code lists, this is a really handy tool for you. This is one tool, like a lot of our tools that were born out of a lot of customers requesting this from us. And so that's the case with a lot of our products. We listen to what you guys want, what you're after, and then we put those tools in your hands. So I look forward to your feedback on these tools as well. And with that, I think that's just about everything I wanted to show you today. Like I said, we've got time for a Q&A right now, so go ahead and type those into the system itself. I'm just going to talk about a few conclusions here, and then I'm going to turn it back to Ramil. He's going to help any questions that we might have today, and also mention a few other announcements to you guys. So, conclusions, what are we trying to do with some of these tools we showed you today? First thing was the label genie tool. We want to label more effectively, right? Well, that's just tedious work. Why do we have to spend a lot of time? Any kind of legend creation or report creation, we want to be able to do that much more quickly. You know, I've shown this tool to a lot of different people, and they say, well, you know, Brian, we always just have the one size fits all. And maybe that does work for you. I'm not, you know, you guys know what's best for you, obviously. But consider if you didn't have to do that, right? Sometimes it's not just about speed of producing these plans, but it's about accuracy too, right? Again, it's not showing information in the legend that shouldn't be there, or vice versa. Data processing, whether it's topo importing or exporting for staking, we want to make that faster. We had a couple of those free tools to address that. And then survey standards, managing this stuff a lot more efficiently, be it the CIM Manager Suite, where we can export your standards into Excel and then write those back to any other template or D2G or DWT, or working with multiple survey code lists where we can easily translate between one and the other. So that's out of what I want to show you guys today. Ramil, do we have any questions that came in?
Yes, we do, Brian. First question is just coming in. The labels on the layout sheet, are they created on the layout sheet or model space?
Yeah, so the question is about those labels. Where are they created? They are created in model space. And, you know, we thought about that, and we know that there's a variety of ways people are doing things out there. And we decided to stick with model space because it's kind of the way that Autodesk and AutoCAD is built to use. If it's Civil 3D labeling, obviously all of that has to be in model space. If it's annotative M text or M leaders, that stuff has to be in model space to work correctly. And so everything is labeled in model space. And so with that, that's kind of the workflow we got in line with, I guess, in that. That being said, you always run a change space on those labels if they're not Civil 3D labels, and you could push them into per space if that's what you were getting at, if that's what you were after.
Okay. Not really a question, but a request here. Can you prepare in future some tutorial about how to model a 3D earthwork in order to calculate different quantities, such as sub-based, based, asphalt, and also building pad?
Yeah. So a two-part answer to that. We actually have a tool in development that's going to make all that earthwork calculation based on Civil 3D surfaces a lot easier. It's not ready yet, though. That's a couple months up. But I think what we will do is I actually have a nice YouTube video out there that shows what I think is the best way to do it in Civil 3D with the current tools available in there. So I can be sure to pass that on, and we'll get that sent out to you guys in the follow-up survey. So let's make a note of that, Ramil, and make sure that that gets sent out.
And I think that is about it for the questions.
Okay, great.
If you have any questions, please type them in, folks.
Yeah. And in the meantime, I'll actually pull up that video and show it to you guys, just so you're aware of it as we wait for any other questions that might come in. Those of you who need to take off, thanks so much for joining us today.
Okay, we have one came in. can you add the total length of a polyline to a legend?
Say that again, Ramil?
Sure. Let me just rephrase that. Can you add the total length of a polyline to a legend?
Yes, absolutely. So with that tool, the Data Wizard tool, I was showing you that in here. I'm going to show you on the screen again. The types of information you pull from those objects. You were asking about polyline quantities. Okay. I can pull polyline information. There aren't polylines in this particular drawing, but I can turn on 2D length, 3D length, okay, and I can pull that kind of information from those objects. Now I can pull per object like this, or if I go back to my filtering here, I could tell it to include a separate list as well as a summary. And when I do that, what I'll get is both the summary, the total length of a given, object type and layer and so forth, as well as individual lengths. Or you can pull just the summary. So yeah, any kinds of quantity information, be it lengths or areas or volumes, or just counting objects, you can pull that through Data Wizard. And here's that video I did want to mention. If you go to CTC Software on YouTube and search for site grading on our page, you'll get to this video here, and it's a detailed presentation we've done at a conference, but it talks about, towards the end of it, there's maybe about 5-10 minutes on really effective ways for earthwork calculation. It's a really cool process, so I encourage you guys to check that out. Any other questions there, Ramil?
Just, I think that's about it. I think, yeah, there's nothing else that can. Yeah.
You guys can always send us a message after the fact. We'll certainly be connecting with you, reaching out to you. We always like to get your feedback on of course, the tools and the webcasts, and know what you think of them. So you'll be hearing from us as well on that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it for the questions. So with that, concludes our webinar. Thank you, Brian. And thank you all for joining. I hope to see you back on our next webinar. If anything does come up after, just reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you. And we can also do a dedicated demo for the rest of your CAD team that we're not intended. Just let us know. With that, thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.